Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings. Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a weekly podcast from Practical E-Commerce, hosted by entrepreneur Eric Bandholz.
What is going on, Internet? Eric Bandholz back again with another E-Commerce Conversations. I hope all is going well on the other side of the Internet. On the other side of the Internet from me, Andrew. What's up, man?
I've got to learn intros from you for my podcast because that was so much better than what I do. Like it was enthusiastic and exciting.
You just got to start off the show yelling. You just yell.
Yeah. Okay, that's the trick. It took me a long time before like intros didn't take me like 15 tries because I would just stumble over. Oh, this person is this and this and this and this and this, and I'd get all the details wrong and blah blah blah. But anyway, I'm doing great. It's great to see you. I'm glad. Thanks for bringing me back on here.
There's a reason I only say people's first name. It's because I can't get last names or company names, anything like that, right? So it's just like, we'll just leave it to the first name.
Yeah, it's so funny because I'm very comfortable talking in front of a crowd, talking with a microphone, talking on a podcast, whatever. Once you get into like explaining concepts, that's like, I'm good to go. But if you give me a list of details to recite for somebody that's just like, hey, tell people when and where and how to get it and all that stuff, I am horrible. I feel, I don't know, it probably says something about the way my brain works, but I'm horrible.
Well, before we get into it, Andrew's a reoccurring guest. He was on late summer, early fall last year as we talked about getting on to Meta and our strategies there. Why don't you give our listeners a real quick recap of who the heck you are, what the heck you do?
Sure. Andrew Faris. Right now, the main thing I do is run AJF Growth, which is basically, I would say, a boutique marketing agency. It's small. It's me, a couple folks in the US, and then a few folks in the Philippines who work together as a team to grow e-commerce brands, primarily using meta ads. I also give general strategic help to brands. I keep a small list of clients and not really trying to grow it. I really like having a group of people that I'm working with kind of in the long run. So that's what I do. Have a podcast as well called the Andrew Faris Podcast. It's creatively titled, and talk a lot about what I'm seeing and learning there. That all comes from a whole range of stuff. I've been brand side as a media buyer. That's where I started in e-commerce about 10 years ago. Then I was the head of strategy at Common Thread Collective. Not immediately, there were some steps in the middle there, but real good friends with Taylor Holiday. And so he and I have been working together in some capacity for a long time. Went over from there to help lead an aggregator that CTC launched off. I mostly sucked at that pretty bad. And we also thought that was a bad thesis, the aggregator thesis over time. So that wound down to one brand, at which point I left and then jumped into AJF Growth. So for the last couple of years, been doing this. That was in 22, I think you're what? No, 21. No, 22. That's right. Beginning of 22, I went off on my own. So I'm a couple years in now.
So I would imagine there's a fair amount of overlap with our listeners listening to your podcast and my podcast. But sure. If you don't, a good way to kind of dip your toes into the water is I did an episode with Andrew where we essentially like opened up our books and walked through what our ads were and kind of like a deep dive into creating and building an account. And he was working with Mike, my copywriter, to kind of help him along the ways. Why don't you talk a little bit more about what that episode is? And
yeah, when I was at 4x400, the aggregator where I was running brands, we were trying to be pretty radically transparent with the brands that we did. So I had a podcast then, and it was different, but that was the e-commerce playbook, which is now a different podcast. And anyway, the basic idea was like, as we were in the process of trying to grow those brands, we were trying to show people what we were doing. And people really liked that because there's a lot of like chat about what people are doing, but it can be really oriented around like the wins that everybody is experiencing. But of course, like, as you know, Eric, it's not all wins all the time, right? So what I've found is that people like, it's really hard to get transparency. So you came to me and said, Well, so I had this idea, which is like, what if I could do a series of episodes, sort of special episodes on my show that are longer deep dives with brands who are willing to show what's actually happening in their business, the wins and the losses, with a high level of transparency. And you obviously do that on this show, and generally have been really public about a lot of your journey and Beard Brand's journey. And so when you came to me and said, after we talked, on your show, you said, hey, we're looking at meta ads more. We traditionally haven't done a lot of paid. And I said, well, I don't have actually space for another client. I can't do another thing right now. But what if we did essentially a couple hour coaching call where we just kind of work through what is happening in your ad account, and I'll give you my honest take if you'll give me your honest information, and then we'll record it and give it to the people. So that's what it is. So it is called Opening the Books. Beard Brand. It is the second Opening the Books episode I've done. I'm trying to do more in the future. I've got one more next, but people, the first one I ever did was my most popular episode for a long time. It just got passed, but it was my most popular episode for a long time, where I worked with a business that was just getting going as well. I'm pretty confident this is going to be, people are going to love this episode with you and Mike, because it was the three of us. And then Mike and I did a follow-up a couple months after the first episode, and we put it all into one episode. So I talked with Mike about and you about what I think you should do in your ad account. Mike started doing it, and then a couple months later, we looked back at what he had done and saw the progress that was happening. And so people who watch or listen to that will get both. All of it is at what is that? agfgrowth.com, which is my website, /beardbrand. agfgrowth.com/beardbrand. All of the information is there, and it is uploading as you and I are talking, Eric. So yeah, I think it turned out really awesome. I appreciate so much that you were willing to share it with people. I think people will be very helped by it. It was like very gracious and humble of you to do. So
yeah, I'm excited to check it out. But I figured, what we can talk about today is kind of where Beard Brand was, and what we kind of implemented, and the success or the failures of our attempts in that. So
yeah.
to kind of catch people up with Beard Brand, we started going, I have in front of me on my screen kind of like what we spent on Facebook. So we started spending on Facebook week 19 of 2023. Do you do your weeks by actual dates, or is it just?
No, I think it was sometime in August that you basically started spending, because I've actually got your account pulled up right now. You have not taken my access away yet, so yeah. So
well, I saw that in there. I'm like, we're doing a podcast. I'll give them access.
Yeah, you spent. Can I say the number?
Yeah.
About
so
how much you spent in July. Yeah.
Well, so we week 19 was I think in May, which was when we were working with like a college grad who was just trying to get off the grounds, and really hungry guy. But I think he didn't have the same kind of focus. So like week 19, we spent like $300. So it was like we weren't really doing anything, and we're also at that time we were still doing Google. So for the next 4 weeks, we were running Google ads and then Facebook, and we essentially over that month got it up to about $1,000 a week. And then on week 23, we cut Google ads altogether. This is when like, oh my God, like everything was a disaster at Beard Brand, and my team was furloughed. Everyone's half time. It was not a fun time. But basically from week 23 to week 33, so for 10 weeks, we were spending no more than $1,500 a week, and really on average like $700 a week. So like $100 a day, which is like nothing.
Yep. Yeah. And then we started working together, and basically August, September, the turn started to happen where you started to spend a little bit more aggressively. And that's when we recorded, was basically as you were starting to ramp, as Mike was starting to get real serious about it. Now you're spending more than that, which is great.
Yeah. So we went, I guess it was about August 27th. Really, right when we handed the keys over to Mike is when spend went up, and then ever since then, we were spending kind of like $3,000 up to $7,000, up to $1,000 a day, and we're starting to see kind of like results of the new strategy. Whereas the previous strategy we were running, kind of like spring and summer, was this like creative testing strategy, and then pick the winners. And then we went with the Andrew Faris strategy. That's what I'm going to call it. We'll we'll name it after you.
Great. It's nice to have a named thing like that,
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun. I think for a long time I called like growing YouTube organic to do your customer acquisition seriously the Eric Banholt strategy. So there you go.
Yeah, we all got to have something named after us. And
Uh-huh.
I would say, like, a little bit digging behind, how I look at things and kind of like our numbers. We were seeing, generally speaking, on average, as we ramped up, our my North Star metric, which is our new customer acquisition cost and new customer AOV, is kind of like really what I look at. Our average cost of 2023 was like $21. But we also really were kind of hanging around like $1,000 a day of spend. So it wasn't anything that fundamentally like changed our business. And then our new customer average order value was kind of around $64. So it was pretty good in terms of like the raw numbers. But I think like the real growth opportunity that everyone talks about is just like, how do you get that spend from $1,000 a day to $10,000 a day or something? Where I see who's it, Shackelford's wins all the time with Brez or Breeze.
Brez, yeah.
And kind of is like, man, that guy knows how to ramp it up quickly.
Yeah.
Do you are a lot of these rapid growths just like the right product market fit, or how are people doing it where they can scale like so quickly in such a short period of time?
Yeah, I mean, so the Shackelford example is a great example, right? That drink is essentially like, I think like a weed drink, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a cannabis drink? That is co-founded by, I think they're called like Lucid Fusion or something. I forget what they're called. Lucid, maybe. Anyway, but basically folks who are like, they have like a special relationship with Meta to where they have unique ability. And this is how I understand it. This could be wrong, but they basically have unique ability and experience and permissions to run cannabis related and I think not only cannabis related, but like even like the downstream. What's the non-THC stuff that
Delta
everybody
9.
No, the stuff that people take
CBD.
like as balms, CBD, thanks. You can tell I'm deep in the cannabis game. But CBD, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of permissions around that, right? And so I think Lucid, who Nick has partnered with there, and maybe, I don't know, maybe an equity holder. I'm not sure exactly what the relationship is, but they have like basically all of the experience running those brands and those products. So it's helpful to remember when you see an example like that it's really great that they share their wins like that. Like they have been awesome about doing that kind of stuff, but also just to remember like those guys are insanely experienced and in not only meta ads, but the category itself. They really, really understand it. And I do think, yes, that selling that product, there's like unique product.
But I mean, like you've had success selling like a $12 product or $15 product and scaling that up.
That's pretty low, but yeah, definitely lower AOVs. Yeah.
So like, what are the keys in 2024 to see that kind of success?
So okay, so the big thing that we talked a lot about on the Beard Brand Opening the Books episode as a starting place was getting some media buying rules right. And the example I use, I don't know, I gotta come up with a better analogy here, but the analogy I use here is that like essentially media buying is the setter and creative is the hitter. Like the creative is the spike. So the media buying is the set and the creative is the spike. And the idea is the set matters a lot. Like if you put the ball in the right place, it's going to make the hitter's job a lot easier in volleyball, is the analogy here, right? To actually go score the point. And you need both, but they're different jobs. And doing them both well really, really matters, even though ultimately the thing that is going to finally score the point is the creative. Now, I don't know anything about volleyball, so that may like actually be a terrible analogy. I'm not sure, but hopefully that makes some sense. And I think a lot of people are setting very, very poorly on their meta ads. They're doing it in a way with their media buying that is extremely costly. And the main way they're doing that is by running all their creative tests in a way where and this is the core principle, they're launching creative tests, putting a bunch of money behind those creative tests, and then trying to pick the winners from the data in front of them. So they're analyzing the data and saying, okay, this is the winning ad, and so these are the ones that we're going to scale. And that sounds really intuitive at first, except for two things. The first is people, I think, consistently underestimate the amount of cost that is going into those tests. I have a theory right now that creative testing in D2C brands is the single biggest cost center in a lot of D2C businesses, especially that are running a lot of paid social. That it is actually a very expensive process to go do that. And secondly, we humans are terrible at using our lizard brains. And this applies to me as much as to anybody else, right? I got 10 years of experience running meta ads for brands. I've done it across every category, basically. And yet I am horrible at analyzing a data set, picking the winner, and scaling the winner. The beautiful thing is, it's okay because meta ads, via its machine learning and all of its tools that are going to do this for you, will pick the winner for you if you just set your media buying up to do that. And so that core principle of launching tests and allowing Meta to amplify your winners and suppress your losers instead of you being the one to try to amplify your winners and suppress your losers, in my view, does this drastically more efficiently, both in terms of scaling winners faster, identifying winners faster, and crucially suppressing losers faster. So you don't spend a whole bunch of money on those losers. And the way to do that is to launch a bunch of ads in ASC can be one way to do it, but my basic setup is to run manual bids. I use bid caps in a CBO setup so that Meta Ads is basically getting all the decision-making power about which ads to scale and which ads to suppress. And so all the details of that are basically what I talked with you and Mike about in that episode. We talked through exactly how we would do it in your account. And actually, it's one of the reasons I was so thankful to get to do that with you, because many people ask me this question: how do you get going doing this strategy that you're talking about? They've heard me talk about it, or they've heard very similar ideas from like Taylor Holiday at CTC, or the guys at Kinship do pretty similar things. We have some slight differences, but it's all in the margins. Dave Recook does this with Bamboo Earth, and so they've seen this kind of thing out there and they've heard about it, but how to do it. And so that's basically what we talked about on that episode. So that's number one, is the media buying rule. So I'll pause there. Is like getting that set up so that you set as perfectly as possible every time, so you can set up your creative for the spike.
So I kind of want to like add on to that from like the CEO owner's perspective as a guy not in the weeds. Nor do I really want to be in the weeds, nor do I even care. But when I look at what we've done with Meta over the past 6 months and what we are doing with Google Ads, in particular, what is that? Search marketing, paid search marketing. The amount of new customers we're driving for the amount we're spending is significantly higher on Meta. Like, I do a post-purchase survey and I can see the spend that I'm putting into Meta, and I'm seeing that drive new customers. Whereas I feel like Google Ads, I almost felt like Google Ads, maybe not entirely, but they were just siphoning the searches that were already happening.
Right. I mean, this is a classic money losing thing in Google, right? Is that because Google is inbound based, right? Meta is demand creation. And so you're actually going to go out there and take people who maybe have never heard of Beard Brand and put your product in front of them and get them to buy all in 1 second like that, right? Google, because it's inbound, it's search, every search is going to reflect a different level of intent. I might search something related to like beard care. Now that person's probably product oriented. Somebody might search like a problem that your product solves, right? And then of course somebody is going to search beard brand utility oil. That person is insanely high intent, beard brand utility oil. And the problem is there's only so many of those people searching it, because there's only so much demand existent for your product, because there's only so much awareness of your product, right? And so now you have to do the job of generating the actual additional awareness. And the number one way people lose money in Google Ads, this is actually another giant cost center in a lot of business, is that they overspend on branded search and they mix their branded search with their non-branded search, and it's just like a giant mess. So
yeah. So like the one nice thing that we've done as someone who's been that organic guy and growing through organic and loving organic growth is like I've never had, trust in paid. Like I know people have had success, but we've had some wins and losses over the years. And I just wanted to feel confident that the money we were spending was driving new customers, not just, like Meta and Google taking advantage of the work we've done in the past. So, us killing Google ad spend and basically our only paid customer acquisition happening right now is Meta. And it helps give me that confidence. So like if you're on the fence or if you're dibbling or dabbling in a lot of different channels and kind of going horizontal or going sideways, I would strongly recommend that you kill off all the channels except for one. I don't care which one it is, if it is Google or if it is Meta, but pick one and really own that and feel confident that what you're doing is actually driving new customer acquisition.
I think this is great advice. I think one of the biggest problems, especially when things aren't going well, one of the biggest challenges, and I have experiences, right? When I was running 4x400 and we were struggling, I was looking for solutions everywhere I could. And there is so much value to focusing in one place and getting really, really good at it. And then only adding additional stuff when you when you actually really have great process that is set up in the place that you're already investing. And there's just, I mean, Meta's the perfect example. People diversify from Meta way too fast. They think they get some easy wins or something like that, or even some medium wins, and they're like, okay, great, now we got to add other channels. And it's like, no. This is the most efficient customer acquisition machine in the world for the vast majority of businesses. Keep hammering away at it. Like, I bet you guys didn't build your organic YouTube success overnight, and you built your business on that when you started, as far as I understand from here you talk about it, right? It requires a bunch of effort over and over and over again. Only after a lot of time doing that do you look at it and go like, okay, we're actually hitting diminishing returns now. We have to add something else. And that is a hard realization, but that takes a lot of time to get to. And there's some pain at that point, but that's really far down the road. You can't just give up on something like that super fast. So anyway, I think this is excellent advice. People just need to keep hammering away at making the core thing better and better and better for a long time. That focus will help you do all kinds of things, including keep your costs low, right? Because every channel you add is a bunch of costs, not only in the ad spend or whatever, but typically in somebody to run it. And now it's an attention cost and all those kinds of things. Yeah, get really good in one place and then add the next one.
I'll say one other thing that I really am glad that we did, and Mike is particularly good about this as well, is like we're just focusing on one product as well. So we've gotten up to essentially like $2,000 a day of spend with one of our 9 products. So I think about like, let's take that one product as far as that can go with a creative that we can produce for it. And then after that, the next opportunity is the next product on Meta rather than Google or whatever other channel. So like, to me, I see, let's say we're spending $2,000 a day. Well, I've got 9 products. I can get that up to $18,000 a day and effectively acquire customers with all of our products in theory. So that's kind of
I think that's right. Again, I think that's totally right. Like, I think, yeah, you just sort of discipline yourself to go keep doing it. If you know that's a product that there's demand for in the market, that's a good product that people are going to like, that has the margin profile you need, that has the LTV profile you need, all those things, then you go hammer away at it until you solve it. Like, that's what you got to do,
So it's, I think for the first time in a very long time, 2024 for us is like a super exciting time because we've found success, we've found wins, and you can kind of like build off of that. Still not where we want to be. What are the ads that work? What is the creative that works? How are people going to save time by not dicking around with bad ads?
Yeah. So I think there's 2 ways to think about ad creative, and they're both important. So if you run the media buying setup I have, one of the implications of it, and I talked about this on your episode with Mike and with you, One of the implications is that if Meta will suppress your losers and scale your winners for you, it basically totally eliminates the risk of testing ads, which means there is a good argument that basically you should launch high quantity ads as long as they are low cost to you on the production side. What I mean by that is, like, the first thing I do for any ad account that I take over is I go back into the backlog of ads in an ad account and I just start relaunching ads that somebody turned off at some point. At some point, they turned them off, and I just go grab them and just go, like, just to turn it back on, put them on a bid cap, and that way, Meta, a bid cap, if you is just going to basically say Meta will only spend if it expects that the click-through rate and the conversion rate are going to net out to where it's going to get a CPA under a target that you set. And so you just set your threshold and say spend if you can hit it, a CAC threshold. Don't spend if you don't. And so there's a good argument for quantity. Like, here's like a really, really simple practical thing somebody listening to this can do. They can go and take all of the organic content they've created. And I mean almost all of it, as long as it references a product and doesn't have any like licensing issues that would make it illegal for you to, put ad dollars behind this. Right. And just go launch it in your ad account. Just go grab the existing post, as long as it's at all product focused, even if it like completely died on the vine on your organic Instagram post, 3 people liked it. Just go launch it in a bid cap and see what happens. You just never know what ad didn't work organically, but that will work for paid. Okay. And so there's a quantity argument. So go do that. It also means there's an argument for like everything else you can do that's low production cost has potentially high impact, because I and you and everybody else is actually really bad at predicting what ads are going to work. Again, I have 10 years in this. We joke about this with my friend Dave Recook, who we joke about Recook's law, which is the law of meta ads, which is that the more excited you are about an ad, the less likely it is to perform, right? And the reverse is true as well. The more you think an ad sucks, the more likelihood that it's going to be awesome. This is where arguments also in favor of like just pick up your phone and record an ad in 30 seconds and do whatever comes to your mind and just launch it. Go build it and launch it. Go ahead, do the post-it ad. It works. Go write on a post-it next to your product and say, this product is awesome. Literally write that the copy. This beard brand, this utility oil is awesome. Put the post-it there, take a photo of your phone, put it in the ad account. So there's a quantity argument. Okay, so there's that. So that's the first thing I would say. Again, if Facebook is only going to spend on the winners, there's basically no risk to you as long as the production cost isn't super high. Okay, so there's that. And then there's the quality argument. And I would put some more time into ads that I think have a better chance of performing. So I mentioned Recook's law, but it's more like a law you're trying to break. And I think there's a point here now where I've seen consistently some ability to generate ads that work. And the number one rule, in my opinion, of meta ads creative right now is that it is basically impossible to be too product focused and too direct. Like my ad that I see working the most right now is the long form explainer ad. And it, this will be 2 to 3 minutes long, talking head with a mix of B-roll, or maybe even just a talking head showing the product or whatever. But maybe mixing in some B-roll so that somebody can just sort of see the product from different angles as you talk. And like the ad goes like this. And like I'll do Beard Brand, right? This is the utility beard oil from Beard Brand. That's the hook, okay? I mean, like, could not be more direct. Remember, the kind of advertising you're doing on Meta is called direct response advertising. You are trying to get somebody not to think nice thoughts about your product the way Nike is with their Super Bowl ads or whatever, right? What you're trying to get somebody to do is on their phone, stop scrolling and click shop now and go make a purchase right now, which means they need a bunch of product information to do that because they did not even know you existed a minute before they came across your ad on their feed. So you're getting somebody to try to go from not knowing you existed to making a purchase right now, which means they need a bunch of information. So start by telling them this is the utility oil from Beard Brand, and then you just start talking about what makes it good. Here's what it does. What it does is it it gives I don't know, what does the utility oil do?
Softening your beard, moisturizes.
Okay, great. It softens your beard and moisturizes your skin, and then you elaborate. Have you ever experienced the thing where your beard, where you've got dryness in your beard, dryness in your skin? That's because this, and this reason with your beard and your skin. Here's exactly how the utility oil is formulated to solve that problem. And then you validate it, and so it's basically hook, which is the product, and you could try multiple hooks here, right? So like just take all the same ad, but run it with 6 different hooks. Again, launch them all. Let Meta pick the winner. So then you go body education. So you hook education. So you explain what it is, and then you talk validation. Okay, here's why you can trust us. Basically, again, they didn't even know you existed a minute before they came across this. So you say, this is how many 5-star reviews we have. This is the 30-day money back guarantee we have. So there's absolutely no risk to you. And then you give a CTA. You should go buy some absolutely right now. I also like pairing that with an offer. That to me works. Basically, take that same concept and apply it to all kinds of other formulas and formats as well. Make it on a still image. Again, write it on a post-it, like do whatever you got to do. Do an us versus them that basically gets at the same thing. Any of those kinds of formats can work great. Grab your phone, record it. Don't even worry about the editing. Do exactly what I just said in 30 seconds. Like Eric, if you hung up this call and recorded that video showing the product and showing you putting it on, with your phone, I bet it would work. And that's basically the point. So quantity, launch as much stuff as you possibly can within that system. Quality, dig in on really trying to communicate your product and why somebody should buy it right now as clearly as possible. That to me is the key to great direct response advertising.
I think, the one thing that's interesting and something that I've been thinking about from a high level, and this was kind of like based on the podcast I recorded last week with Bryant, but it's like there's so many different ways for your business to provide value in the marketplace. And with our product, men's grooming, it is incredibly competitive. There are, hundreds, if not thousands of competitors that we're up against. And the differences between a beard brand product and another product is, relatively speaking, pretty negligible. It's not an innovative product like, something you've never seen before, like a Segway or something. So, the value that you're bringing to the customer is going to be slightly different. And I almost feel like the value that we bring is in the brand, in the marketing, like in the presentation. So, I mean, like, how do you kind of blend those really tough industries where for all those people who have products that are, for lack of better terms, not remarkable and in heavily competitive spaces, like how do they stand out, I guess is the question I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, well, this is also where I think people overestimate how much people are worried about that in some ways. So, so one way to think about it is like that you think about, especially if your product has a unique mechanism. I had a conversation with Cody Plofker from Jones Road Beauty on my podcast a couple weeks ago. And he said this thing that just knocked me back. And I probably should have known this, right? But whatever, I didn't go to marketing school, so I didn't know. And Cody was saying there's this concept called the unique mechanism. And the idea is what is the thing, if it's a category that people know the alternatives, you got to hone in on what the thing is that makes yours unique. The example he gave was, do you remember P90X, Eric? I bet you do.
Yeah. Like the workout at home.
Yeah, right. So talk about a crowded category. It's like a workout system at home, right? Again, there's a bajillion companies that do that. And everybody has tried them and they've all worked or not worked for people or whatever it is. And so P90X was really hot for a while there. I don't know if it still is or not. But the unique mechanism of P90X, the reason that it worked in all of their ads, which were very direct response ads, was this concept called muscle confusion. And they had named and labeled, and it's funny because once Cody said that, I had remembered them talking about this idea in ads. And I do you remember that? Do you remember hearing that phrase?
Well, I mean, we came up with the term scent confusion for people using conflicting fragrances of their various grooming products. But it didn't work for us, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that phrase happened to be really powerful for them, and the idea was that by accomplishing muscle confusion in your workout program, you're going to grow your, get jacked faster, I guess, or whatever. Was the hook basically. And whether or not you actually name it in terms of something catchy like muscle confusion, that basic idea I think is really helpful, which is there's a thing people are looking for when they are shopping in your category, and how does your product uniquely generate? What is the unique way in which your product generates that outcome? Now, in a category where there are so many competitors, right? Like you said, men's grooming is really, really crowded category. I was talking with, again, my friend Dave Recook, who's come up a few times now, running Bamboo Earth. He actually did a poll for his customers recently about what other skincare, women's skincare brands are you using? And he polled a bunch of people and had 600 different companies mentioned. None of them mentioned more than 2% of the time. So there isn't a category leader, the category is that there's a million brands. And so what do you say? Well, and I think the answer is that tells you that people are just interested in shopping in it. And so as best as possible, you communicate your unique mechanism, validate it as best as you can, and go from there. But like, don't even worry about competitors. People are going to go shop around to do a bunch of stuff, and you just, they're okay with that. They're used to the idea that there's a million different options in the category, and that's kind of it. So I think directness is basically the answer here, and the more tightly you can communicate what your thing is, what your thing does, even if it doesn't do it really uniquely better than every other thing, even if there's no magical formula or whatever it is, maybe you don't have something like quite like muscle confusion, though I don't even know how real that is, like I think there's something still you could probably say about what makes utility oil work in your case, right? That you could communicate as clearly as possible, and just keep it really core and direct to the central thing people are looking for there. Here's why it moistens your beard and softens your skin, or moisturizes softens your beard and moisturizes your skin. It's because of this ingredient, or it's because of this formulation, or whatever. And maybe it isn't any super different than the other categories in space, but there you go.
I would say, my recommendation for other entrepreneurs and owner operators out there is you see brands that grow very rapidly, very quickly. And you have to understand that they have a different market, different audience, different potential.
That's right.
And just because you're not able to grow your company as quickly as them, it doesn't mean you're less talented or gifted or, my reminder is learn to enjoy your own journey and focus on, what Andrew says, is just get that messaging, refine it, improve it, master it, and progress and grow. And then at the end of the day, your company will be what it's going to be. If it doesn't grow, to be that $1 billion company like Native and what Moise did, or what Sean's doing with Bridge Wallet, that doesn't mean you're necessarily any less competent than Sean or Moise. I mean, maybe you are. They are pretty.
But that's okay too.
People.
Those guys are right. Exactly. Yeah.
So I just want to encourage people out there who are grinding. It's okay to be on your own journey and to do things at your own pace and to celebrate your wins in your own way, rather than in 2 months going to an 8-figure business and everyone's bragging about you. And I don't know. I just feel like this is the trap that a lot of entrepreneurs get in, and they end up chasing strategies that actually hold them back.
It's related to the thing you brought up earlier, which is trying to do too many things at once. A lot of times that's motivated by an anxiety and insecurity about the outcomes, and instead of being willing to focus and let things kind of come as they are. But I think also what you're getting at is a human nature problem that's actually quite a bit harder to solve than an ad account. It's really easier to say it's really easy to say, be content, be satisfied. It probably depends on where you are too, in terms of how satisfied you should be. But yeah, I think, and you're really good about this, Eric. I know you've talked about the idea that the thing you're looking for is freedom, and that's what you're trying to build for yourself, a business that you like running and those kinds of things. I think it's a really helpful perspective in the midst of a sort of bunch of people who are saying grow, 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 grow. Probably my favorite illustration of this that I hear people talk about is Andrew Udarian used to ask, I don't know if he still does, but on his podcast, he has asked at times how much is enough? That's one of his lightning round questions for entrepreneurs. How much is enough? And the way I always think about this is I don't know for sure what my answer would be here, but what I desperately want my answer to be is right now. I have enough right now, right? Essentially, because I think if I can operate from there, not only will I live a more joyful life, but also I'm more likely to make better decisions too. Actually, if I'm not driven by the anxiety of more, it's less likely to take me some other places. So I don't know. There's some people who are super driven to go push and pursue, and I think that's cool. There's an element of that makes it so that you end up with, as we're recording, OpenAI released a text to video or whatever, and it's wild. This is insane stuff. Or you hear about companies manufacturing drugs in space. It's well, somebody at some point didn't think enough was enough, but that's not me, and I'm not going to go try and chase that.
I mean, I'll say candidly and honestly, I am disappointed in myself and in my abilities to, on year number 12, we still haven't gotten to that 8-figure mark. So egotistically speaking, I'm disappointed in myself. But on the other end of the spectrum, my house is paid for, I've got savings in the bank, I love my team, who I work with. I still have relationships with my business partners. Like I've categorically won, the game of life. So, I can create these weird benchmarks that get me upset, or I can just focus on what I do have and the gratitude that I have. So like a little bit of a tangent out there, but where can people follow you? Where can they check out the episode?
Yeah, everything's at ajfgrowth.com, or if it's a podcast, ajfgrowth.com/podcast. But the actual best place to start here, and I'll send you the link, Eric, for the show notes or whatever, is ajfgrowth.com/beardbrand if you want to hear specifically that. If you liked this conversation and specifically some of the ad stuff, we got into all of that in much more detail and actually talked about how to apply it and then even show the results in your ad account, which again, I really appreciate it, man. I think it's really cool of you. Like you said, right? You're expressing your own thing there about 12 years in and not getting 8 figures. Like it's just it is hard sometimes, I think, to show some of those things, and so you sort of letting people into an early stage of a new venture in the business like that is really cool, really helpful. I think people will get a lot from that.
Sweet. This has been another e-commerce conversations. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Andrew is a brilliant person. Maybe in another year we'll bring him back and Beard Brands upped our spin even more. We'll find out. As always,
let's do it.
Thanks for listening. Cheers. Keep on growing.